Do we have to get rid of the ego? In the Western world, especially, I've noticed that people seem to contemplate this question. I need to get rid of my ego. I need to somehow get rid of something about myself. But do we really have to get rid of it? Or is there another way to go about this while we're alive? Well, in fact, today I wanted to give my take on this and say that we don't necessarily have to get rid of our ego, but rather we want to use it wisely. Because the ego right now is a creation, a manifestation that sort of helps differentiate between things and people. So I have a specific identity, it seems, and you have. You have a name, I have a name. We would say you have a body, I have a body. Everyone has names and bodies out here. That already is part of the ego construction in a way. So I would say that it's more useful to focus on how can I transcend my ego itself while I'm still here. Because that leads into that whole attitude of being in the world but not being of this world. So transcendent awareness is what we're after. It's to realize that at its core we are infinite awareness. However, infinite awareness itself has taken upon this flow of consciousness as sort of limitation through which we identify ourselves. So right now, for the most part, we think we are our bodies and our names, our race, our gender, our, location, our careers, our income brackets. We think we're all these things. We identify with all these labels, and therefore that is all part of the ego construct. Now, another thing I would like to point out here that might help someone out there in their journey is if you look at your body as being ego itself, we're talking about your physical body, then as well, by saying I need to get rid of my ego is like saying I need to get rid of this body that currently seems to create all these limitations for me. Because from a place of transcendent awareness, where you sort of outgrow and perceive beyond the limitations of the body, you realize how limited it actually is in a way to physically be here. Now, most people are not really aware of this at all to begin with. They don't really have the conscious experiences of transcendent awareness, so to them the perceptions that they hold while they're in this body is the only reality they know of. So that means it becomes even more tricky at first, perhaps, to understand that it's not really about getting rid of something at all. It's rather about revealing to ourselves the truth of who we are, the eternal nature of our own being. And we can do this through overcoming and letting go of being a human being itself. So if I'm going to try to explain this in a way that is hopefully makes some sense to people out there, it really comes down to the fact that consciousness can evolve way further than we're allowing it to evolve. So usually we restrict it to the perception of being a human physical being. We restrict consciousness to being a limited physical creature itself. So we identify with being our labels. Basically, again, where we identify with being our ego. Everything that is about us, physically speaking, we think that's what we are, but we are not. We're the power that gives rise to all of these phenomena, and that's what we want to lay hold of. So by doing that, we are not so much getting rid of the ego, we're transcending the ego, and therefore we can be in this world but not be of this world. So we learn to act from a place of deeper universal wisdom that can come to us through our intuition. So we no longer feel like because something physically speaking seems to limit us that we are truly a limited being. We don't feel that any longer. This is the problem, is that people somehow sense that and they get lost in that limitation all over again. So through meditation you can learn to disentangle your awareness from all these labels. You learn to let go of them. And I think the best way to let go of these labels very rapidly is to look straight into the fact that one day you're gonna be physically gone. And that means that all these labels that you're wearing and that you're carrying around right now are not the eternal truth about who you are. And we gotta find that. We're gonna have to do this while we still can. And you'll always have time to do it, so don't worry about it. It's not something that if you don't do it right now, you will miss out your chance forever and gonna be burning in hell forever or some stuff like that. That's not what we're talking about. However, as long as we don't really take the time to figure this out, we are going to suffer more than we would if we understood our own transcendent nature. If we really gain the experience and perception of these deeper eternal truths about who we are and what we are. So to always contemplate, who am I? What am I? To do this in meditation is very useful, but it does take it's sort of, well, I would almost say a special person, but what I mean by that is it does take the ability to let go of the labels of who you thought you were at first glance. So if I ask you, who are you? What are you? Well, a person that is not really spiritually aware, their first reaction would be to say that they are their name and that they are their body. They would say, in my case, for example, I am Renil, and well, what are you? And then they might say, well, I am this, and they point at their body. But these are things we use after all. So transcendent awareness will show us that we are that power that has actually given rise to these phenomena. It is that power behind it that you really are. That power that is saying the name. The power that is touching and pointing at their bodies. Can you grasp what I'm getting at here? Because that is actually how you transcend your ego, by understanding that you were not the ego. And so you also don't really have to get rid of it, because you'll automatically outgrow it by transcending your consciousness beyond it, by actually laying hold of the greater realities of the soul, of this universe, the deeper layers of existence through which the physical phenomena world is manifested. So all of this takes some time to contemplate for ourselves. There is magic word or thing I could give you, physically speaking, where instantly you would grasp all that I'm speaking of. But what I do want you to understand is that it is very useful to make the ego work for you, because then you will be in the world but not of this world. So whatever you set out to do comes from direct inner revelations, from direct inner intuitive guidance on what you could and should be doing, physically speaking, in order to improve or to do what's best for you and the world around you. And then by following intuitive guidance, if you let your ego follow the intuitive guidance of the soul, well, that's the process of letting your ego work for you and no longer enslave you and entrap you into the illusion of being a limited human being. So you could set any goal that you have and let your own intuition guide you, that has access to a much broader universal wisdom, instead of trying to figure this out from a purely ego-based perception that only sees and knows limitations. You see what I'm getting at? Because if you can get access to that transcendent awareness, that's when you outgrow the labels of your own ego. That's really what you want to do. So you don't need to get rid of the ego while you're here, like it's some sort of object you need to throw away from you. I know in many spiritual teachings they do talk about it, and in a way I'm still actually saying that you should get rid of your ego, but it's like through the method of transcendence. Then it naturally sort of falls off of you. So it's not going to be a battle where you're trying to force something out of yourself. You simply want to outgrow, transcend the old limited ideas of who you thought you were. And that is also a way, and I think a more useful way of letting go of the ego. And it no longer is a matter of needing to get rid of something because of the greater wisdom you gain through transcendent awareness. It just naturally falls off of you. You naturally see a greater reality. This is what it's about, to evolve consciousness beyond the labels of the ego that you were given when growing up. If you can physically die while you have attained transcendent awareness, well then, great things are in store for you as well, beyond this physical world. But I would also say that if you fail to reach that place of transcendent awareness, of letting go of the labels of your ego, then there is a high chance that when you die you would sort of get stuck for a little bit still in a realm where it might be like a nightmare or something, where the limitations that you thought you had would still come to haunt you because they're still part of your consciousness. But if you learn to transcend the limitations of the ego, you will be able to perceive God's kingdom more and more, and you'll be able to enjoy it even while you're physically here. You see, you just simply lift up your ego, you make it listen, you become able to lift it up and let it obey the true nature of the eternal soul that you are, that is limitless, and that is one with the universe, that is one with God. So this was just something I wanted to put out there, because maybe it can help somebody out there on their own eternal journey. That's sort of what I've been looking at with my videos as of late. They're actually kind of messages that I'm going to just leave behind to this world for others on their journeys, and maybe it helps them out, who knows. And it's just something that I find interesting to do while I'm here. Who knows how long I'll be here, I don't know. Maybe for a long time or maybe not, I have no idea. I can only tell you that it is like as of late, especially as of the last few months, my mind has been sort of in a place where I kind of want to let go of this world entirely, but at the same time I know I probably should stick around a little bit more, so that's what we'll keep doing for now. Just share some of the insights I gain as I let go more and more. My mind seems to expand in greater and greater realizations that are almost, well, they can't really be tied to this world any longer. That's all I know. But I know it's part of the evolution of consciousness itself, and it's the destiny of every human being to grow and outgrow ultimately this whole physical world itself. And that will be your destiny as well, eventually, once you're ready. But until then, instead of trying to get rid of your ego, use it wisely. Make the ego work for you by gaining more and more insights through your ability of transcendent awareness. Let go of the labels of what you thought you were. Really analyze the question, who am I? What am I? Meditate on it, and let it guide you straight out of the traps of the egoic mind. And then you'll automatically sort of get rid of it. You'll always carry the ego with you while you're here physically speaking anyway. But you'll be able to use it wisely instead of being stuck by the limits that the ego used to throw on top of your infinite awareness.